Don't worry, I know my limits. You just need to assist me. Changsheng waved his hand, his tone incomparably firm. All right then. But if anything goes wrong midway, we stop immediately. Feng Dao gritted his teeth and agreed. He knew that once Changsheng had made up his mind, not even 9 oxen could drag him back. It was pointless to keep persuading. After that, Changsheng found a wooden staff as tall as a man and handed it to Feng Dao. The two of them walked straight to the middle of the courtyard. Changsheng spread his legs apart, his face solemn. Later, strike my chest and back with the staff. Unless I tell you to stop, don't stop. With that, he immediately assumed the stance from the first illustration in the manual. Both arms crossed before his chest, his mind sinking inward into his body. Brother Changsheng, endure it well. Feng Dao's eyes showed some reluctance, but he began swinging the wooden staff, striking down onto Changsheng's chest. Bang! 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 The crisp sounds echoed throughout the courtyard. Changsheng felt sharp jolts of pain surge through him, making his whole body tremble. As the strikes grew faster, the waves of agony came crashing like a relentless tide. He clenched his teeth, refusing to back down. If he faltered this time, he feared he would never be able to step onto the martial path. To have a stat-modifying tool in hand, yet still choose to remain an ordinary mortal. Better to smash his head on a block of tofu and be done with it. Carrying such conviction in his heart, he persevered. Body like stone, mind like crystal, Changsheng silently recited the core maxim of the technique again and again, slowly sensing a faint thread of insight. At that moment, a blue panel appeared in mid-air. Host, Changsheng, age, 20 realm, none martial arts, iron cloth, novice, 1%, skills, none equipment, none status, good energy, points, 5 bound, beast, mountain piercing armadillo, white. Seeing the progress bar move, Changsheng's face lit up with joy. As long as there was progress, sooner or later he could push the cultivation method to 100%. Then he could finally try spending energy points to level it up. This instantly filled him with renewed vigor, almost making him forget the pain racking his body. Soon, the only sounds in the courtyard were the steady thuds of the staff. A strange scene. A youth desperately wielding a wooden staff, striking the body of a young man. The boy's face flushed red from exertion. The two of them continued like this until noon. Brother Changsheng, are you all right? Feng Dao put away the staff, looking at Changsheng's bruised body with worry. I'm fine. Changsheng smiled faintly, wiping sweat from his forehead. Looking at the 6% progress bar, he felt deeply satisfied inside. At this rate, in half a month at most, he would achieve entry-level mastery. By then, there were a few debts that needed to be settled properly. Hearing this, Feng Dao was utterly astonished. He never expected Changsheng to seem like a completely different person after surviving disaster. Before, he had feared hardship in the slightest. Training in such a self-abusive martial art was unthinkable, yet now, upon waking, he had undergone an earth-shaking change. For the next 4 days, Changsheng continued cultivating iron cloth in the courtyard, filling his hunger with nothing but black cakes. Through bitter perseverance, he pushed the progress past 60%. Seeing the numbers rise on the panel, he felt very pleased. But on the 5th day, something changed. Although the progress bar still advanced, and by his estimation, he could reach entry in another 7 or 8 days, he was forced to stop. The reason was simple. After days of intense training, subsisting only on black cakes, his body could no longer hold out. If he continued, He might well die before even reaching entry level. The bruises on his body had not yet faded before new injuries piled atop them. He needed meat if he wanted to continue. The saying went, the poor study letters, the rich study martial arts. It wasn't just empty words. Even medicinal baths alone cost a fortune, let alone eating meat every meal. Ordinary folk could never afford such expenses. Brother Changsheng, what's wrong? Seeing Lu Changsheng stop, Fang Dao was puzzled. Knew Lu Changsheng wasn't someone to give up so easily. Lu Changsheng frowned. I need some meat to continue cultivating. Otherwise, something dangerous might happen. But all his money had long since been stolen, and there was nothing left at home. He couldn't even afford coarse rice, let alone meat. As for ways of making money, he did know a few. Producing ice cubes and refining a bit of white sugar weren't difficult. With some tinkering, he could manage, but Lu Changsheng dared not act. Revealing such a method of making money was a sure way to die. Without absolute strength, these things were nothing but death warrants. The powerful clans and gangs of the county would never speak reason with him. To compete for a share of their livelihood was courting death. Lu Changsheng was certainly not foolish enough to try. It seems I can only rely on that beast, he thought to himself. Yes, he intended to send the mountain-piercing armadillo into the great forest to dig up some medicinal herbs to sell at the apothecary, earning a little silver for now. This was also the safest way of making money he could think of. A few common medicinal herbs would not easily draw attention. Fuang Zhao stood silently at his side. His own household was also in hardship. These days, even having enough to eat was a luxury for ordinary folk, let alone eating meat. This difficult problem was something he had no solution for. I'll head back first. With that, Fuang Zhao turned and quickly ran off. In no time, he had disappeared from the courtyard. Luke Truong Sin took a sip of water and sat quietly at the stone table to rest. He intended to wait until late at night when no one was around before taking action. Time crept slowly by. The sky soon darkened, the sunset glowing blood red. Tap, tap. At that moment, the sound of light footsteps drifted over from afar. Luke Truong Sin raised his head. He saw Fuang Zhao returning, this time with a beautiful young woman at his side. She looked about 24 years old. Even a coarse cloth dress could not conceal her graceful figure. Bright eyes, elegant brows, her long hair tied into a high bun at the back, yet her face showed traces of wind and frost, giving her a touch of mature charm. The two walked together, and in her right hand, the woman carried a food container. This woman was none other than Fuang Zhao's elder sister, Fuang Tin. She had some reputation in Xiangping County. 8 years ago, she had been promised in marriage, but just a few days before the wedding, her betrothed suddenly fell ill, coughed up blood, and died. Fuang Tin became a widow before even crossing the threshold. What was worse, neighbors gossiped that she bore a fate that clashed with her husband, some even claiming she carried the white tiger fate. As time passed, everyone came to fear her, as one fears a tiger. No man dared to propose, and thus the years dragged on until now. The former Luke Truong Sin had also always avoided her. Such matters were deeply taboo in the old days. Before long, Fuang Tin and her younger brother stood before Luce. Truong Sin, I heard you want to learn martial arts. If you can't achieve anything, then give it up. You're not young anymore. Find some work, marry a wife, and carry on your family line. That was Uncle Luke's greatest wish. At the mention of marriage and descendants, Fuang Tin's expression shifted slightly. She herself was still a maiden, and thus felt a bit embarrassed. Then, she placed the food container and a string of copper coins on the stone table. Our family doesn't have much left. Just this chicken and 10 coins. Fuang Tin spoke slowly. Her voice was clear and pleasant to the ear. In recent days, though she had heard noises from the neighboring house, she did not truly believe Luke Truong-sin could become a martial artist. After all, he had always been idle and was already 20 years old. His prospects were slim. What's more, he had no resources whatsoever. Success was almost impossible. She did this only because she didn't want to see Luke Truong-sin cripple himself from reckless training. Their two families had always been close, and in hard times, they had received much kindness from Uncle Luke. Fuang Tin only wished to repay that debt, so her heart could be at peace. Thank you for the reminder, elder sister. I'll think it over carefully. Luke Truong-sin smiled faintly, offered his thanks, and did not explain further. He accepted her goodwill. The gift was by no means a light one. Fuang Tin was a little surprised. In her impression, Luke Truong-sin had always been wary of her, often avoiding her, let alone showing any kindness. She hadn't expected him to change so much. With a strange feeling rising in her heart, Fuang Tin took her younger brother, bade farewell, and returned to her own courtyard. Once the two had left, Luke Truong-sin opened the food container. A rich aroma wafted out. Inside was a large bowl filled with chicken soup. Warmth welled up in his heart. The siblings had killed one of their family's only 2 old hens. Without delay, he began to eat ravenously. The vitality he had consumed through days of training was somewhat replenished by the nourishing meat. Soon, the big bowl of chicken, both broth and meat, was emptied into his stomach. Luke Truong-sin let out a warm, satisfied burp, leaned back in his chair, and closed his eyes to rest. An hour later, night descended. The moon hung above the willow branches. Silence spread in all directions, only broken by the occasional cry of a night bird. Luke Truong-sin lay on his bed. With a single thought, he summoned the earth-piercing armadillo. A round, peculiar beast appeared on the open ground inside the room, its eyes glimmering faintly, giving it an almost mystical air. Chit, chit, chit. The moment it came out, the armadillo squeaked excitedly. It had long grown restless from being confined inside the system's space. Luke Truong-sin split off a wisp of his consciousness and directed the armadillo outside. Before long, it reached the middle of the courtyard. He silently recited the skill burrow. At once, the armadillo's claws spun like fiery wheels, furiously churning up the soil. Since the earth in the courtyard was soft and often soaked by rain, it was especially loose and easy to dig through. In no time, the armadillo had opened up a deep pit with clumps of brown soil scattered all around. Luke Truong-sin guided the creature into the hole, tunneling toward the outskirts of Xiangping County. Though Xiangping County lay at the frontier of the dynasty, its population was no small number, well over 100,000. Within the Great Zhou realm, this was considered a populous county. Beyond the city walls, traveling a few dozen li to the south, small mountains began to rise, and farther still lay the vast renowned Shangyun mountain range. The smaller peaks were strung together like a natural barrier, easy to defend and hard to attack. Bandits of every size entrenched themselves there, to the great frustration of the authorities. All the more so in recent years, with the dynasty in turmoil. The county officers had little energy left to deal with them. Luke Truong-sin's target this time was a mountain called Little Cloud Peak. It was the closest to the county town, not too large nor too small, just right for a first exploration. At this moment, several meters beneath the ground, outside the southwestern wall of the county town, dig! Keep digging! Luke Truong Sin pressed forward diligently, without the slightest weariness. Around him was pitch black, the earthy smell filling his nose. He avoided digging too deep. At 5 or 6 meters, the soil was already quite hard, but staying too near the surface risked noise and exposure. If a martial expert discovered him, it would be dangerous beyond measure. 5 or 6 meters was the best balance he had tested. While the people of Shangping slept soundly, he pressed onward. On the way, he would pause to rest when tired, or gnaw on wild roots when hungry. Not until dawn of the second day did he finally arrive at the foot of a mountain. Late at night, everything lay still. The moonlight spilled gently across the thickets. Countless tree shadows wove into one another, dark and foreboding. Rustle, rustle! Suddenly, a narrow beast's head burst up through the soil, parting the wild grass. The armadillo emerged onto the meadow, armored back, gleaming faintly under the moonlight. This must be Little Cloud Peak. Luke Truong Sin looked at the forest ahead, eyes flickering. He had never left the county before, only heard others speak of this mountain. But given the distance he had tunneled, this should indeed be the place. He cast the thought aside and quickly slipped into the dense forest. Tall weeds brushed against his body, crackling softly as he passed. He expanded his senses and pressed up the mountain. With the attribute modifier active, as long as he concentrated, he could vaguely sense movements within 20 meters. By relying on this ability, he avoided several large beasts along the way. At the mountain's base, nothing worthwhile was to be found. Martial artists often roamed here. His goal lay at the summit. Climbing straight upward, he reached the mountainside in just over half an hour. Still, he had yet to discover anything of value. Could it be that this mountain has already been stripped bare? Luke Truong Sin's heart sank. Being the closest peak to the county, it was entirely possible. Poor mountain folk might have long since gathered whatever herbs grew here. With this in mind, he began planning further ahead. If even the summit yielded nothing, he would be forced to push deeper into the Shangyun range. That was what he least wanted. His spirit beast was far too weak. The closer to the range's depths, the greater the danger. He could not afford to lose it recklessly. Sisus. Luke Truong Sin neared the summit. Fierce beasts grew more numerous. The air was thick with the acrid stench of their markings. Grrr! Suddenly, a thunderous roar exploded through the mountains, majestic and overwhelming. There's a tiger in the mountain! Feeling the might of the Beast King, Luke Truong Sin's body tensed, as though he had met his natural nemesis. King of all beasts, nourished by the mountain's spiritual energy, its power was terrifying. Not even low-ranked martial artists could pose a threat to it. With the body of this beast, he could only circle around it for now. Therefore, Lu Changsheng grew even more cautious. Slowing his crawling pace considerably, he tried to move in a more concealed manner. Following a path for half an hour, he arrived near a cliff. At that moment, a streak of yellow appeared within the grass ahead. Could it be a harvest? Lu Changsheng was overjoyed. But instead of rushing forward, he carefully sensed his surroundings. An invisible ripple instantly spread out, enveloping the forest within a radius of 20 meters. Like the perspective of a god, the entire space unfolded in a faint blue light. This was the first time he had used his full strength to activate the system's sensing ability, and it was indeed useful. If his strength increased in the future, the range of detection would likely expand as well. After confirming there was no danger, Lu Changsheng darted forward. In no time, he reached the yellow plant. This plant was just over a meter tall, with a bright golden flower on top, bearing 9 petals. A pure fragrance lingered in the air. He immediately stretched out his claw toward it. The moment he touched the flower, a line of notification appeared before him. Dragon Bright Herb, 30 years. Specializes in treating tendon and bone injuries. Non-toxic. Long-term use. Strengthens the body. Collect, collect. Lu Changsheng chanted silently in his heart, and the herb vanished instantly, leaving behind a small hole. Although he wasn't knowledgeable about herbs, a 30-year-old Dragon Bright herb must surely be worth quite a sum. Having secured his first harvest, his confidence soared. He continued crawling toward the mountain peak. Time passed slowly. On the way, relying on the keen perception granted by his attribute modifier and the instincts of a beast, he discovered several more medicinal plants. All of them were around 20 years old. Before long, Lu Changsheng reached near the mountain summit. The surroundings grew increasingly silent. An invisible pressure seemed to blanket the peak. This place might be extremely dangerous. Lu Changsheng was on high alert. Just as he was about to descend the mountain, his eyes caught a sudden sight. A streak of crimson appeared beneath a large tree ahead. What's this? At a glance, he was certain this herb was far more precious than the Dragon Bright herb. Even from a distance, the pure fragrance reached him, causing his blood to stir. Seeing no danger within 20 meters, Lu Changsheng rushed forward. Soon he arrived before the herb and extended his claw. Ginseng, 90 years, greatly replenishes qi and blood. Non-toxic, long-term use, prolongs life. Lu Changsheng was ecstatic. This was truly a treasure. It was nearly a century old, not inferior at all to the yellow essence his father had left behind. Just as he was about to collect it, a sudden change occurred. Roar! A tiger's roar shook the mountains and forests, forcing every beast on Little Cloud Mountain to flatten against the ground, trembling in fear. Even the dense forest quivered violently, swaying as though stirred by an invisible force. A massive tiger, several meters long, its eyes glaring fiercely, emerged from the woods. It stared at Lu Changsheng with murderous intent. Someone dared to steal its spirit herb. Its fury was boundless. It had waited years for this herb to mature. The fierce tiger pounced, closing the distance in just a few leaps, until it was right behind Lu Changsheng. Clouds follow the dragon, winds follow the tiger. The might of the Mountain King revealed itself fully before Lu Changsheng for the first time. Damn it, this herb has an owner. Feeling the crushing pressure from behind, Lu Changsheng tensed up. Every muscle in his body stiffened, as though facing a mortal enemy. Collect, collect! He roared within his heart, but each collection required several breaths of time. Far too dangerous. Collection successful. At the final instant, just as the fierce tiger closed in, Lu Changsheng succeeded in harvesting the herb. Yet he dared not relax. The tiger was already upon him, its foul breath wafting over him. Without time to think, Lu Changsheng bolted into Shaoxou, the dense forest ahead. The distance between them was far too close. Even burrowing underground now would be too late.